Hello everyone and welcome back to Jacqs. Thanks for joining me today. I will be sharing with you my Country Craft Creations project that was part of the Back to School YouTube Hop. And this is part 3 in the mini series that I'm creating for this interactive mini album 2.0, or what I referred to it as Back to Hogwarts mini album. As you can see, it has that theme. This has been a fun album to create, but because there's so many different techniques in this album, it is taking me longer to bring that out to you, so I do apologize for that. And there have been other things going on behind the scenes. My router broke. I had to research which one to purchase because, that's all different now. So I wanted to make sure I was buying the right kind, and that took about a week to research, get it, put it in, and get that working. And then I've also been working a lot behind the scenes for Country Craft Creations. There was a lot of events going on that I got to help out with, which was really fun. And I even recently published their September Country Corner newsletter. And so I will have links to the playlist for this mini album, as well as anything else that I reference down in the description box for you, so you'll have access to everything you need. Now, there are certain things that you need to know before we get started, so I'm going to go over those right now. So this project comes with a cut file and pattern bundle. It has SVG files, PNGs, and patterns for those that want to create by hand. It also came with a sizing guide to help you when you are cutting by hand or loading to a cutting machine, as well as a cutting guide. So it will give you all the measurements you need to recreate it. That bundle was free when I first came out with this project. So lots of you took advantage of that, and I'm so glad that you did, because there are so many different patterns that go along with this mini album. And today we will be using not only the cut file bundle, but also we will be using the free printable that goes along with the Country Corner newsletter that we just released. So I'll have a link for that, as I mentioned, in the description box. You'll need that printable. It has these elements to recreate the cover. Well, not this one. I just tucked that in there. As well as some journal cards in there that we will be using today in our page 3 designs. In addition to the newsletter freebie, there'll also be an additional freebie down below for you to pick up, because we'll be using that in today's design as well. Anyone that picked up the bundle when it was free or purchased it since then, thank you, by the way. I really do appreciate that. I will have emailed you any updates to the cutting guide and any of the SVG files and patterns that you will need to complete page 3. There are a lot on page 3 that you'll need. So I hope that you picked it up. If not, it is still available now, but just at a small cost. I think that's everything you need to know. If you didn't receive your email, go ahead and message me using the email listed below, or go on to Ko-fi and message me through there. Okay, I think that's it. Now let's get started with page 3. For our next page, we're going to be creating a time turner belly band. So you'll need a base page. I'm going to be using this pattern paper from the collection, but of course you can use whatever you like. And I have created templates to go along with this design. You can use them, or you can also use the cut files that I've created for those that have cutting machines. So you can create by hand or by using the cutting machine, whichever is easier for you. So the first thing you want to do is cut out a 6 3/4 inch circle out of our pattern paper. Now you can do this if you have one of those circle cutters. I know there are actually tools out there that cut circles. You can use that. You can also use the template that I have available in the link below and print that out at actual size on cardstock and then cut it out. You can then use that as a template on your pattern paper, trace it, and then cut that out from your pattern paper. Or you can use the SVG files that I've created and use that with your cutting machine. And that's how I've cut mine. So you won't actually see me do any cutting, but I'm providing you options on how you can create the project. So the first thing you want to do is cut out the circle with the window. So here is our 6 3/4 inch circle. It does have an 1/8 of an inch circle in the center. So if you're cutting by hand and you're using the template, there will be a little circle in the center to show you where to punch that out. But otherwise, you would just take your ruler, find the center of your circle, make a little tick mark, and then punch that out. You could probably use an awl or a knife blade. The cutout window at the top measures 2.5 by 1 5/8. And hang on to this because you can use this as a template for when you actually go to cut out your photos to be added to the time turner. And I'll show you all that in a moment. So this is what our first piece looks like. This is the top of the, it's like a viewfinder wheel, I guess, with the little cutout window. The next thing you want to do is cut out one of these circles the same size that has the 4 drawn windows. Again, you can use the template. Just print that out on cardstock, cut out the circle, punch the little hole in the center, and then you're good to go because it will already have the drawn squares on it for you. If you want to create one by yourself, cut out your 6 3/4 inch circle. I would cut down a piece of cardstock to the size that I just gave you and place it on your cardstock. And I think I went about 3/8 of an inch in from the edge on each side. A little bit over, but that's a good measurement. So in the center would be about 3/8 inch on each side to place and draw your rectangle. Otherwise, I would definitely recommend using the template. It'll be a whole lot easier for you. And again, I created the SVG files so that when you upload this to Cricut Design Space or Silhouette, you can change these lines to draw and have that be drawn onto your circle. So there's 3 options for you. So this will be our second layer to the little viewfinder turner. So if you see, this fits right in here. This is where our photos are going to go. So that's why you want to hang on to this, use this as a template, take your photo, cut it down, and then you can add your 4 photos in these little areas. And we're going to attach these 2 pieces together and they will turn, and then you can turn to look at your photos. Now to make the turning easy, so I'm going to take a 1 1/4 inch punch, kind of go right out evenly as possible to the right hand side of my circle. And I'm going to cut like a little thumb notch out of it. So when you layer them, it will be easier to turn it, right? That'll be much easier. And you'll get a better idea of that as we go along. Okay, let's start putting some of this together. We're going to take and glue down our pattern paper. Now, the way that I'm going to do this is actually flip this over so that I'm using just the script and the blue background. And then this will be in the center and pop. I love it. And what's great is the text is going to line up with the image and text, which makes it awesome. I love that. Okay. Now remember, this piece here that I'm gluing down measures 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. Now, because this is going to be a belly band, this is going to be on top, and we'll be able to slip photo mats or whatever we want to put under the belly band underneath here. Now, it should not have any problem tucking things under there, but if you see when we tuck, it will get stopped by the difference of the two levels here. Because we have cut out a circle, this now has a bit of a lip, if you will, right there. So what I did was cut out an extra circle, and I'm going to fill up that area. Now, you may think that's silly, but when you go to tuck your items in, it won't run into that, see? But if we didn't have it here, it gets stopped. Okay? So you want to cut out one full circle, 6 3/4 inch, and add that to the vacancy that we created. Okay, and now we're good to go. Okay, our base page is ready to go. We have our photo wheel ready to be attached. At this point, you can just use the viewfinder wheel to decorate the page. I show you how to attach it to the page here coming up. But first I show you an optional item. One of the things that I did for this page was to add a time turner on it because I really just love that feature in the movie. Now this is an optional feature. You don't have to add it. You can stop by just using the viewfinder wheel, which I think is great as well. But for those that picked up the cut file and pattern bundle that also has the cutting guide, you will be able to recreate the time turner feature that I'm about to show you. I cannot recreate the time turner feature by hand. It's just not possible. I don't know how to hand draw out this so that you can replicate it because it is a shape that is odd. So for those that did not pick up the bundle during the time that it was for free, which I actually just closed that out the other day, it is now available at a small cost. However, you don't need to add this element is all I'm trying to say. You can just stop with the viewfinder and you still have a really nice decorative page. So now let me show you how to use this optional time turner. But we're going to add our time turner piece to the front of our photo wheel. To do that, I actually cut out an additional full circle. So you would need two 6 3/4 inch circles that are just solid cardstock. These aren't going to be seen, so it doesn't matter what color they are. And I'm going to give you two options on how to decorate this page with the time turner. Option 1 is the easiest, and what you would do is print out the template for those cutting by hand, and it will look like this, just a regular time turner. And I'm cutting mine out on acetate, and I recommend you do that as well. So I would cut this out on cardstock and use that as a template to then cut it out on acetate by hand. Again, you could put this down on your acetate, trace it, and then cut it out, or you can use the SVG files that I have available that will cut this image out as well. So in either case, option 1 or 2, you're going to need one full time turner. So I'm going to put that here on my piece. You're not going to be able to see it really, but this is what it looks like, okay, right here. So maybe I'll use this one just so that you can see more clearly as we move along. The next thing you want to do is cut out the outline of the time turner. And this is part of the templates as well. This is an option. You don't have to do it. I just wanted to do it to define my time turner a little bit. If you're using a solid cardstock here, you really wouldn't necessarily need to do the outline, okay? So this looks great with solid cardstock. Actually, I'm liking that as well. But as I mentioned, I'm going to be using acetate. So if you cut out the outline, that goes here. Yeah, if you had a nice solid cardstock you could use, or you could even use another pattern paper over this, I think that would look really good. It's just not where I'm headed, so I can't change my mind at this point. No time for that. So that's the outline. And then I've included this, what I'm calling sand. I created this image as if, you know, the sand is at the top of the hourglass and that it's dripping down into the bottom. And this is going to be attached like this. Super cute. So that is option 1. I even then created these little pieces to go at the top and the bottom of the time turner, just for a little bit more decoration. So you can cut those out by hand or by SVGs and add those to the top and the bottom. So this is option 1. This is the easiest way to create the time turner. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to be doing something a little different. So you need the base acetate piece, or this one. Remember, this is option 2. And then you're going to need to cut out on acetate or solid cardstock, whichever route you're going, the full time turner that has hinges on them. Now, I only have the full time turner cut out on acetate, but I do have an outline of one with the hinges just to show you what the hinges look like. So these are up here at the top. Okay, so the hinges are here at the top. Just going to fold over on those. And then you have one full time turner. And again, you would use the outline if you're using acetate, and then the top and the bottom piece, as well as the glitter. But what I'm going to do is create this into a shaker. So I guess there's 3 options. And then I'm also going to be using some crushed glass glitter and creating a shaker as well. So I'll not only have the glitter, but then I'll have some loose pieces in there. And I just think it's going to be kind of fun. Now this does take a little bit more time to create, but that's the design I'm going to make. So I've already shown you the pieces that you need to make option 1, which is the easiest. If you're doing option 1, you take your acetate or solid piece of cardstock, you glue on your sand. If you're going to add the outline, you would glue that on as well. If not, and you have a pattern paper, that's perfectly fine. And then you can glue on these additional pieces in a solid color or pattern onto the bottom. And that's your time turner. Super easy. Okay? Now, I'm going to walk you through how to create the acetate time turner that I'm turning into a shaker. The first thing I'm going to start with is my full time turner that has the hinges on the top and the bottom. I'm going to take my outline piece and go ahead and glue that down on top of the acetate. Now, this can be a little tricky, but I think it'll be worth it in the end. So these line up right on top of each other. I would only do it a little bit at a time to make sure you get it in the right spot. And the way that I attach them, if you can see here, to kind of go on to the top part of the time turner, about 1/8 of an inch or so. So it'll go 1/8 of an inch up onto this top time turner piece. And then we can start taking the rest of it off. I don't know if this helps or not. Okay, so that's the back side of it, just to give you an idea. Okay, now what we want to do is turn this over, and we're going to add 1/8 of an inch tape, which is what I use to adhere the outline of the time turner or the hourglass. You want to add the 1/8 of an inch tape right where the outline is on this side. We're going to use that to seal this to our full sheet time turner or hourglass. I'm only saying time turner because that's the term they used in the movie. Okay, this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, is turning it into a shaker. Otherwise, it's really quite an easy and fun project. Now you can use wet glue, but I do not recommend it. It is completely messy when you're working with acetate. So I highly recommend using adhesive tape for this part. I kind of just took it and wrapped it around where I needed it to go. So even if it was bunchy, I still did it. See? Just to kind of give you an idea how I'm doing that. And I'm trying to just stay where the hourglass outline is. If you cut your adhesive tape, make sure that the two ends are meeting when you go to start your next portion, so that there's no holes or gaps in between the adhesive. Regular shaker rules apply when we create this, so if you know how to make shakers, you'll be able to do this. You could also sew this instead of using adhesive tape. I thought about doing that. I don't know why I changed my mind. I think that might have been easier. You may need to clean up your acetate before adding your other elements. You could use a static pouch to get rid of that static. Let's see, I might do that a little bit. So here's my static pouch. Just kind of brush it in there a little bit. Move it around. Okay, we're going to set our full-time turner with the hinges aside. We're going to bring in the full-time turner without hinges and bring in our sand piece. Now, as I mentioned, there's a template for this. You can cut that out on cardstock, use that as a template to then trace this onto glitter paper, or use it as a template and just cut around it. You can do that, or you could freehand cut this. There's really not too much to it. But what we want to do now is go ahead and glue this down. I'm going to use this as a guide. I'm just going to add some adhesive tape to the back of this. It's not going to be seen, so it doesn't really matter what it looks like back here. If you wanted to, you probably could add some glue, especially up here in this area, but I wouldn't do too much. Now we want to place this down on our full time turner. Keep in mind that we have the outline that's going to go around it. And you could bring this in and lay it over top before you push anything down to make sure that it looks right. Then we want to add our loose shaker bits. I think it's going to be harder to put this down on top than it would be to put the one piece on top of here. So I'm going to switch this up. If you want, you could even put little dabs of glue, maybe up in here, so that some of it sticks up in there. It's up to you. I'm going to just take a little bit of the adhesive off at a time. I think that'll be the best way to go. I'm going to line up these two pieces here at the bottom, and then I'll be able to lay down my first part of the hourglass on top of the other one. Once you have those lined up, go ahead and burnish that part down. This is best to do it in increments. I want to flip this over to see if it's, we're just going to have to trust that this is working out. Okay, well these lined up here, so they're off maybe just ever so slightly. So that's not bad. Not bad at all. Let's come back down here. Oh, now there's some glitter right there. So the tricky bit really is right here in the center of the time turner. I noticed that the outline goes beyond where it is. I don't know if you can see that. So these might be tacky from the adhesive right here. It should still work. So don't worry too much about it, because this is going on top of something else, so it should be all right. Okay. Let's give it a flip. I don't know, what do you think? I probably could have put less down here. I thought it would go down further, but it's not. There we go. You just got to keep messing with it. There, I like that better. There. In this case, the static is good. But it actually, I'm not sure if it's static or not, but there's some pieces sticking. Now, the one thing is, if you didn't want any of the glitter around your photo frame, you would need to probably not put any of the glitter up here at all. I don't mind it. It'll probably give a little sparkle to the photo. And you could shake it down pretty good. Oh, I don't know, guys. I hope you like that. we could go ahead and add our little pieces onto the bottom. I'm just using some 3/8 inch score tape here on these pieces. So this will get glued right on top of our outline there. I folded over my hinge as well, so that would get burnished down. I'm losing some of my glitter here, but I think we're gonna have that solved in a moment. And do the same for our second piece. Okay, that's looking good. Now what we want to do is punch our hole through that glitter piece that we added. So I'm just using my 1/8 inch punch. You could use an awl if you don't have one. Now we're going to bring in our 2 pieces that we previously cut out and have ready. We're going to bring in our brad and put that through the time turner and then through these 2 pieces. Okay. Flip that over and then open that up. Now what I'm going to do is add this black circle to the back side to protect the brad that we added here. If you wanted to do a smaller piece, you could probably do that as well, but I actually already just have this cut, so I'm just going to go ahead and use it. So I'm going to glue everywhere around except for this area here so that my brad will freely move. Okay, this is looking good. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can add your photos right onto this as you're putting it together. Or you can, once it's all together, you'll still be able to add your photos. It's just going to be a little bit more difficult, I think. You would lift up this piece and let's say if this is your photo, you would lift this up and you would be able to see the rectangle and you would just glue it down. You would then turn your piece right to the next one, lift it up again, add your next photo. So your photos can be added ahead of time or afterward. It's just a little different. If that's too cumbersome for you, then just don't put the time turner on it. You would still use the brad and you would need to adhere it to the page a little differently. I would recommend adding a hinge at the top of the circle and the bottom of the circle and then placing that down on your page. So that's just another idea for you. If you don't want to use the time turner, just create a hinge. You would just take a piece of paper, maybe this size, burnish in half, fold it over, and then you got a hinge, right? Super easy. But we are down this avenue and we are going all the way. See, I love how this text just lines right up. It's so cool. The next thing we want to do is adhere the time turner to the base page. So you're going to need to add adhesive tape to our hinge, right? To the outside of the hinge on the top and the bottom. Now, if I was smart, I would have waited to add the pattern paper to the base page, because then we could have tucked these little hinges right behind the pattern paper and then adhere it to the page. But you know, I didn't. So we're just going to add it right on top of it. If you want to add a household tape underneath here so that anything you want to put in the belly band goes in smoothly, you can. It is just, you know, it's always just a little tricky. We could do it to the first one. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to try and get everything lined up here. I want my text lined up just so I know got everything going in the right direction. I'm going to hold that down in place where I think it needs to go. I'm going to make sure my time turner looks even on the page and not crooked. It's going straight up and down. And then I'm going to fold my hinge under and attach it to the page. I'm going to add some adhesive right behind the glitter here. And I'm going to put it on this side of the paper. I want to hold these two pieces in place so that when you're turning the time turner, this top piece doesn't move with it. Okay, does that make sense? I can't even show you. So I just put my little adhesive right here on the underside. Now we can remove, oh, so here's when you could add your tape to this if you wanted to. Just gonna fold my hinge under, flatten this out. It is a little more forgiving since this is on acetate, which is nice. Okay, there we go. And give that a burnish. So now our hourglass or time turner, whatever you want to call it, is attached to the page. We have our top photo wheel piece attached to the time turner so that it doesn't move anymore, but that the photo wheel behind it does move. So you can rotate your photos as you want. Super fun. Now, this is a belly band, so you can create a photo booklet, put in some photo mats, whatever you want to go underneath here. At this point, I don't have anything created yet, but that is how you create this page. If you wanted to add some more decorations to it, you certainly could do that as well. Super fun. Just another way to create an area to add your photos. Now we're going to work on the back of page 3, and this one's going to have lots of pieces, parts, so let's set the book aside and I'll give you all the measurements. First thing you're going to need are these 4 journal cards, and this will be part of a printable, but this will be part of Country Craft Creations Country Corner newsletter. And I will have a link to all of their newsletters from the past that I've done, and you would be able to have access to those printables. It is easier if you sign up, and they can be delivered right to your inbox, so don't forget about that. I'll also link in the description box where you can sign up for their newsletter, so that can happen for you. So print and cut all 4 of these. In addition, you're going to need 4 journal cards, and these will measure 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. And each one of the journal cards is going to be glued on top of that, and then we're going to trim off the edges at the bottom so that it mirrors the actual journal card. I just really wanted this type of look, and what we're creating is a waterfall. So each one of these will get one. Okay. You'll need 1 piece of cardstock that measures 12 by 3 1/4. Let's do our scoring along the way. And for this one, since our journal card is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, you would take it and lay it landscape and mark at the end of your journal card, which is 4 1/4. Your next score mark is at 5, 5 3/4, 6 1/2, and 7 1/4. We can set this aside. You'll also need one piece of cardstock that measures 3 1/4 by 3 1/2. One piece of cardstock that measures 7 by 1 1/8. And quite frankly, I think this was just a scrap piece that I used. So if you have one that's a little bit wider, feel free to use it. You're also going to need one piece of cardstock that measures 3 1/4 by 5. For the waterfall piece, we're actually going to take it and turn it into a moving belly band or a sliding belly band. So you're going to need another piece of cardstock that measures 12 by 3 1/4. And we're going to score this on the long side at a 1/2 inch, 5/8, 8 5/8, and 8 3/4. Okay. So those are all your pieces for the waterfall component of this page. So I'm going to set these aside and we're just going to continue on. Next, you're going to need a piece of cardstock that measures 9 inches across by 8. On the long side, you're going to score at a 1/2 inch and 8 1/2, or I like to just flip mine around and score it a 1/2 inch. This will be an additional page that we're adding onto the base page. So you can go ahead and fold and burnish on those score lines if you like. I don't know where my burnishing tool is. Here we go. Okay, set that one aside. Next, we're going to add like little doors onto this new page like this. So you're going to need 2 pieces of cardstock that measure 4 1/2 inches wide by 8. So you want this to be the height of the page. Then on the short side, we're going to score these pieces at a 1/2 inch. You're going to do that to both pieces, score at a 1/2 inch. And then you can go ahead and fold and burnish those. We're going to have one with the hinge on the right hand side and one with the hinge on the left hand side. For the right hand side, when we open this up, we're going to do 2 stacked pockets. So to create that, you're going to need one piece of color cardstock. I'm going to use this at the back, at the top of where we put our 2 stacked pockets. I always give you the width first. So it measures 3 3/4 by 2. Then the next piece down that will go on top is this piece, and it measures 4 by 3, and we're going to score on the short side at a 1/2 inch. And this is really just a guide, so you don't have to push real hard or anything. And then the last piece, so we have these stacked, right? The last piece is going to be placed right over the 1/2 inch area that we just created. So you're not even going to see the line or anything. And this piece measures 4 by 3 1/2. Okay, we're going to start by adding our journal cards onto our base photo mat card, right? Because we're going to add photos to the back side, right? Now, when I printed out my journal cards, I used Nina 65-pound cardstock. You can use photo paper, any other kind of good quality cardstock that you might have in your stash will work when printing out the printables. You could even print them on sticker paper. There are lots of different ways to use printables. In July, I did a whole video on how to download and print out the printables. So if you need additional information on how all that works, you will find that on the blog post, which is part of the newsletter. I'm putting these down to where there's an 1/8 of an inch border around the 3 sides, and then we're going to, of course, hopefully add an 1/8 of an inch down at the bottom. Not sure how well that's going to go for me. I was going to make cut files, but it was just not going to happen in time. Now we're ready to trim off the bottoms of all of our journal cards here, or photo mats. And you could certainly kind of do a freehand cut, or you could take your ruler. So you would line your ruler up at the edge of the journal card that we printed, and you would go to where it's an 1/8 of an inch out. And then you would do the same over here. Just line it up. If you have a Tim Holtz ruler, this is perfect for this kind of job. And let's cut it and see how good it looks. I would freehand it, but I'm just not that good at freehand cutting. Not too shabby. And then if there's any pencil mark, you know, just erase it. Well, that makes me feel better. I think I'll just do that, especially on this one. So I'm just doing the same thing, lining up that 1/8 of an inch line here with the edge of my journal card. And then drawing my line. I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna do the same over here. Just gonna go ahead and mark all of them. So our journal cards are all ready. As you can tell, we have 2 different styles of journal cards. This goes up, this goes out. So I'm going to alternate these. So you can put these in whatever order that you want, and I just think alternating them gives it a nice pattern. So that's how I'm going to be using them. Next, we're going to bring out our 12 by 3 1/4 inch piece. Let's fold and burnish on our 5 score lines. Now let's turn this over and score the other direction. We want this to be a very smooth mechanism, and working the paper really helps that. So now our piece is ready. We have the long, solid piece at the top, our 4 lines here in the middle, and then another large piece at the bottom. We're going to take our journal cards, and you probably have seen how to make one of these waterfalls before. We're going to add adhesive to each one of these areas and add our journal card on top. So it's really quite easy. You don't need to add too much adhesive. You don't want it to go out oozing all over the place. So I'm lining this base journal card or photo mat right up to the score line, as you can see there. If you want to fold it over, that's a nice easy way to line them up and then burnish it down. And then we just continue to repeat that same process. Taking my card, lining it up to the score line, as you can see there. Making sure my sides are all smooth. And then burnish. So let's give this a minute to dry. Let's bring out our second largest piece and fold on all of these score lines. This one had the 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch score line, and then 2 score lines down here. So I don't think we burnished these before. So let's go ahead and do that. So you'll end up with an 1/8 of an inch gusset on this side and an 1/8 of an inch gusset on this side. Okay, hopefully you can see that here and here. We're going to take the 3 1/4 by 5 inch cardstock piece, and we're going to attach to this, and it kind of creates a full band, right? We need to attach our 2 ends. Right now we're only going to attach one end, and we'll do the other one in a moment. This isn't like an exact size or anything, so I'm just going to add like a 1/4 of an inch adhesive here. You could use tape if you wanted to. I just reached for the wet glue. I'm just going to take this piece and put it over top. Simple as that. So I'm probably overlapping it, and I'm going to make sure that it does overlap the end here. So probably by about a 1/4 of an inch. That's good. Doesn't really matter as long as it overlaps and connects the 2 pieces. You just want to make sure that this gets connected so that it's straight. And then burnish it down. Now that we have these pieces prepped, I'm going to set this aside and come back to the waterfall. And what I'm going to do is kind of just fold back on everything now that it's dry, just to make sure it's all smoothly working. There's no glue overages anywhere. Yeah, looks like it's working good. So we previously cut an extra piece, yeah, for the back because this is shorter than we need it to be. Yes, okay, everything's working. Now I'm going to bring my scoreboard out. Going to line this up where the top of my photo mat is at the 6th line. And I'm going to attach these, and I made it to where it would overlap by 1/2 inch. So if we go down here and make a 5 1/4 inch mark, then you'll have a nice guideline. So I'm going to take my piece and flip it over, add my adhesive here, and then add my additional piece on top. Using the scoreboard just makes sure that you get the 2 pieces aligned. And that's why I like using it. And just burnish that really good. Okay, let's fold that over. I'm gonna burnish again. And now we have a short piece and a longer piece. The longer piece will be what we use to work the mechanism. Now what we're going to do is flip this end over. We're going to take our strip that we cut and add that to the bottom or the top here. Just adding adhesive about 1 inch thick. I think this is 1 1/8 or something. What did I say? Yeah. And I'm just placing that right at the bottom. Really doesn't matter where because our pieces are going to overlap. So these should be right at the bottom and aligned with each other. Now what I like to do is use my scoreboard again. I line up the edge of my cardstock here, right here, this piece, with one of the grooves in my scoreboard, and then I just kind of make a score line there. Just helps with folding. And to make it run smooth, I kind of move it over. So I take the score line I just made and I kind of put it in between one of these posts. So we have our groove, we have like a post, if you will, or a flat surface, and then another groove. I kind of put it in between there where the flat surface is, and then I score right next to it. So here's the groove where I made my score line. Here's the flat surface. Here's my next groove. I make a score line. This gives just ever so slight of a gusset, which will help the mechanism run smoothly. So I'm going to do that on the other side as well. It's probably maybe 1/16 of an inch. I don't even know. I've never measured it. So I'm going to go ahead and fold on those score lines. We have this looking like that at the bottom. We have our long piece here. We're going to flip down the long piece, flip this over. We're going to fold over our flaps. And as you can see here, we have enough, about 1/4 of an inch, where it overlaps. See that? So just add your adhesive to the one side and put this one on top. You don't want to glue anything down here, just the 2 flaps. You know, just line those up, keeping your gussets here on the sides that we just made. Now if we hold this down here, this will work our waterfall. I'm going to be bringing in another solid color cardstock and putting over top of the front of this. And this is our sliding belly band. Because when we add our waterfall on top of it, you're going to possibly see about 1/8 of an inch at the top and 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. And I just thought it might be nice to have that little accent color there. Now I'm adding this now because I don't want it to interfere with our mechanism. So if I waited to add this and then kind of slide something down in there, might not be a good idea. So this is 3 1/4 inches wide and it's 8 inches. So it's as tall as our belly band or as tall as your base page. Just gonna open this up and I'm going to, we have our little gusset right there. So this is on the flat side, right? We have our score line there, score line here. It's gonna go right at the top. I made this the full height and width of the belly band. I did not leave, you know, that 1/8 of an inch around any of it. Because like I said, you're not really gonna see very much of it. Next, we're going to take and add adhesive to the back of our little band, just the band, and we're going to attach that onto our sliding belly band. And I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch at the bottom, about 1/8 of an inch at the top, give or take. I guess I could measure it. Looks okay to me. I'm okay if one is larger than the other one. It doesn't really matter. And then just burnish that down. And then it will look like this. So what I noticed when I was practicing is that it seems to be getting stuck right a little bit right at the edge where that extra piece is attached. But I'm going to go ahead and do our little household tape trick and add that. Nobody's going to see that. So we'll see if this makes a difference. Y'all can wait till I give it a go. But that's not going to get seen, so don't worry about it. Okay, so we're going to continue to move forward. We're going to bring in our large piece that's 9 by 8. We have our 1/2 inch hinges on both sides. What we're going to do with our sliding belly band is we take this, open it up, and put that around our page. So just fold that over it. And we're going to then add adhesive and attach these two pieces together. We're not going to glue it to the base. We're attaching just these two pieces. We're closing up the sliding belly band and it's going to move along our page. Okay? Now I think I told you that was about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this. You know what? I'm going to stick a piece of paper into there just in case some glue seeps out. Remember, you want to maintain the gusset, so don't lay this flat. That's not right. You want to maintain your 1/8 of an inch gusset here on the side. So it might be a little tricky. Let's see. Put your ruler under there. That's the way to do it. That's the perfect way to do it, you guys. So now we have our nice 1/8 of an inch gusset there. If we turn this over, look at that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Smooth as butter. All right. Now, if you wanted to, you could have, and maybe we should have waited. Oh, but look, I can take this right off. Yeah. Okay, I had a moment there. I was just going to say, You can add your pattern paper to the base page and then wrap your belly band around it. Or you could do it afterward. You would just slide it under there, but since we didn't attach this to the actual base page yet, I can slide my belly band on and off as I need to, so perfect. Okay, that crisis averted. Let's set this aside. We will come back and figure out what we're going to do for our pull down mechanism here. We want something on here so that it makes it easy to pull it open. But we're going to focus right now on getting our base page. Well, it's kind of like a floating page, really. We're going to get this together. So we have our 2 additional panels here. These were 4.5 by 8. We have our 1/2 inch hinge, one on the right, one on the left. Now, like I mentioned, I don't have the pattern paper figured out for this yet because I needed to put it together so that I could see how it would go with the page next to it. Or at least that's the way I do it. But we can continue to get this together. So I'm going to flatten this out just to make it easier. Take one of our panels, add adhesive to the back of one of the 1/2 inch hinges. Let's just attach this here to the top. So what I'm going to do is take the edge of where our fold is and add it right up to that score line. So as you can see, right up to it, you can fold it over to make sure it's all nice and even. It's looking good. Everything's smooth. And burnish it down. Very good. Now I do see that mine looks like it's got just a slight little hang up right there. This is nice and smooth. So I am going to trim that off because I don't want anything getting in the way of this. Let's repeat that same thing on the right hand side. Folding over my hinge, bringing that down right to that score line. And again, if it's easier, just fold it over. Actually, it helps you a little bit better to get those lined up. All smooth here, smooth here. Okay, and then your 2 panels should come together here in the middle, and they equal 8 as well, so it should lay right next to each other. They should meet up like this. If you want to put a little gap in between the 2 pages, just trim maybe 1/16 inch off of each side, and then you can have a little gap in between the 2 pieces. I hope that makes sense and that you understand what I'm saying. So gap or no gap, it'll all still work. Now let's go to the right hand side. So I'm going to start by adding my solid color cardstock right here at the top. I'm going to give an 1/8 of an inch border at the top and the sides. For our other 2 pieces, we're going to adjoin these together. Here's our score line. We're going to add our adhesive here and here. We're not covering the whole thing. If you do, it just closes off your pocket. We want that to be a pocket. Just going to line these 2 up, again, right up to the score line. I mean, you can even cover it up if you wanted to. You can barely see it anyways. See, it's actually right there. You can't even tell. I wish I had the pattern paper for this because it would be so much easier, but I don't know what I'm putting there. So we'll just slip it in later. If you want to wait till you know what pattern paper you're using, you certainly can do that as well. Now, to glue this down, what we're going to do is to glue this whole piece on 3 sides and glue that down. So then what we end up with is a pocket here and a pocket here. So you'll be able to put a long tag or something in there. This goes all the way down to the bottom of the page. You want it to be on the other side of our score line here, right where the hinge folds. And then it should match over here on this side. Okay, hope that made sense. So flush here, and then right up to the score line there. Okay, I took a moment to figure out the pattern paper for the rest of this page. So we're gonna finish walking through this. Now, I had started with a scrap piece, is what I would call it, because I cut into it just to get that owl that was on the cover. And I wanted to use this pattern piece since I really hadn't used this one very much. So I cut over at 3 3/4 inches, cutting this completely off. I turned it around this way, and I'm just showing you this in case you want to duplicate what I've done. And then I cut in at 3 1/4. So I cut this off at 3 1/4, and then for this piece, I cut off 2 3/8. And then this was my leftover. So I'm not using these pieces. I'll save it for something else. But now I can use these pieces at the bottom here and at the top. Now the way that I'm going to lay this down is it does not go into the pocket, which is how we normally do it, but I want it to be on top. So when I put my tag in, the important thing to note is to don't put a pocket on the back, don't put any layered stickers or anything. You could put your photo, you could do your journaling, but you want it to be flat so it doesn't get caught on the bottom part, you know, of the pattern paper when it's coming out, since we're not tucking it underneath this first pocket. Hope that all makes sense, because I'm putting it right on top because I want to get that continued pattern look. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these down since we're here before moving forward. And again, there's this, but I'm not going to tuck it down in there. It's just going to go right on top, putting the 1/8 of an inch border around it. Now your 1/8 of an inch may only be on the sides and at the top, because here is the top of the pocket. See what I'm saying? So you're kind of putting the pattern piece like right above where the pocket begins. Now for the inside piece, you're going to need a solid or pattern piece, whatever you like, 3 3/4 by 7 3/4. And I'm gluing that down so it's going to cover, you know, as much of the hinge as we can, putting an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around it. Okay, when I started out this page, I had an idea for this side of the flip out, and it didn't work out. It was going to be a pop out going this direction and this direction, and for some reason I couldn't get it to work properly. So I've moved on and I decided to do something a little different. So in that case, I would not have cut just this little strip of cardstock. I would have covered this whole thing in one piece. So I'll add a little note to the video before you put this down so that you know to watch first and then do. But I'm going to show you now what size of cardstock to put down. So in this area, it's 8 inches across because that's our page size, right? So you could do one that is 7 3/4 inches wide. And I believe the height is, 7 3/4 inches tall. That will give you an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. So that's what I suggest that you do if you have not done this piece already. Now I had to do something different because I didn't want to waste cardstock and I wanted to eliminate some bulk. So you're going to see me do my page a little bit differently and you'll understand a little bit more of that as I go along, but I did want to tell you that this could be one piece here of cardstock. I also recommend one piece of cardstock here on the flap. So that would be 3 3/4 by 7 3/4. Again, I did something different. You can do that if you like, or you can use those full pieces of cardstock to put down here and here. Okay, hope that makes sense. For me, what I did was I went to Cricut Design Space. I created a little bit of a wonky square. It was 8 by 7 3/4. And then I created another square 1 inch smaller. So it was 7 by 6 3/4. I layered those on top of each other, centered them, and then I sliced them, and I got this frame like this. So my center was cut out, and then my overall shape was cut out. What I then did was I lined it up with this piece of cardstock over here. I took my pencil and marked it here where the score line was, and then I cut this in half. Now I did that because I wanted it to cover this whole area, so it will almost make it look like this is one piece. If it doesn't completely, that's okay. It's all good. It's the same color. It still matches. But that's why I did it that way instead of making this just a different size. It was just easier that way. So then whatever I have left, I'm going to put over here onto my flap. And that actually leaves an 1/8 of an inch border, okay? So that's what I'm doing. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that down so I can move on to the rest of this. And oh, look at that. You'll continue to see why I did what I did instead of just putting down a full piece of cardstock. I didn't want this to be super thick when it folds because I have that belly band that I want to have it be able to slide smoothly over the pages. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. You know, if your pages have a lot of bulk, then it's just going to make it not move, make the belly band not move very smoothly. So that was my main concern. I've added my adhesive to this piece, and now I'm going to lay this down. It will be on the opposite side of the score line there. Now you could have kept this piece all together and laid it across the score line, but all that does is add bulk. And I didn't want that. So that's why I cut my piece in half. So now I'm just trying to line them up. So whenever you're making anything, if you're working in a journal or mini album or folio, and you're putting cardstock or paper across a score line where you folded it, it's going to add bulk. So that's why a lot of the times you see us, cut our pieces apart, have it on one side of the score line or the other to eliminate the bulk. Now, there's a specific reason why I did that here, because the next step we're going to do is I'm going to break the rule I just told you. Okay, I'm going to take this piece and we're going to set this aside. The next thing you're going to need is a piece of parchment paper or thin pattern or cardstock. This is a piece of parchment paper I got in one of my kits from Country Craft Creations. I don't know if they carry this brand, which I don't even know what the brand is. It was just a few sheets. I don't know if they carry this anymore in the store or if that was just for kits. So if you have any type of parchment paper at home, or if you have thin pattern or cardstock, that will work as well. Now I cut this to 7.5 by 7.5. Then I took this and I scored it at 3 3/4 down the center. Fold and burnish. Okay, that's the back piece that we're going to be using. Next, you're going to need one piece of pattern paper, and I'm using this piece from Once Upon a Christmas. That's a Country Craft Creations paper collection, and this design just really lends really well to the album that I'm creating. So I've used that twice in this project so far, and I cut this down to be 7 3/4 by 7.5. Now I did create a cut file for this page that I will include. However, this would be something easy that you could recreate. Once you have it cut down to 7 3/4 by 7.5, you want to score at 2 1/4. You want to score at 3 7/8 and at 5.5. Now what we have here is a oval shape cut out in the center. It is about 1 1/4 inches from the top. Once you find the center, go down 1 1/4 inches. The width of the oval is 2.5 at the widest point. So you could technically draw one. If I'm going from the top all the way down to the bottom of the oval, it's at 6 3/8. Okay, so down 1 1/4. Make a mark at 6 3/8, and then you would be able to cut out your oval. But again, I have patterns and cut files for that. What we're going to do is fold both ways on all of our score lines. So let's fold back first and burnish. Then fold forward and burnish. Let's do that on the other side. Fold forward, fold back, and actually I'm going to fold forward again because I want that going toward the front. And the middle ones we want to make a mountain, so we're going to fold up and burnish. So when you're done, it looks like this. Okay. Okay, so with this piece, what we're going to do is kind of create one of the cards that you may be familiar with. It's called a spinning image or floating image card. I created these winged keys, and they'll be available for you. The way that I created them is there is a front and a back. So if you see here at the bottom, the little key's going to the right and here it's going to the left. And so I have that for each one. We're going to put 3 on our string. When we line these up back to back, you'll also notice that they don't exactly line up perfectly. And that's on purpose because it gives you just that little bit of slight movement with the wings, and like they're flapping their wings as in the movie. So I really like that that turned out that way. I don't know if you can see it better on this one or not. So you put the bottom of the key together and then the top part of the key together. So wherever the wings end up being, that's the way they are. So if they're off just slightly, it's okay. It's because you want it to have a little bit of movement. You can even move the wings around slightly to get more of that layered look. So those are the things we're going to put here in the center. To do that, you're going to need some thread. I pulled out several that I had in my stash. I tried each one of these, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and use the transparent one that I have. But if you have any shade of a light tan or cream or vanilla, even gold would actually look good here. I would recommend those. If you do not have transparent thread, if you have fishing line, you could use that. So I'm going to make this the height of the cardstock here, and maybe just a little bit longer. Now I am pulling this thread from my stash. Country Craft Creations does not carry thread. Okay, so let's turn this over. The first thing I'm going to do is take my thread and find the center. And I'm going to go ahead and tape that down. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to show you that because the thread is transparent. But if you can see it here, kind of meshed up in my hand, I'm lining it up with the score line right here. Just right down the score line. And then I'm going to get my tape. I'm just using regular household tape. I'm going to make sure this is in the center. Now I'm going to take the other end of the thread and come down to the other part right there in the center. Can you see that there? Right here. I'm going to pull it taut. Take another piece of tape and put across the line there. And then you can trim off any excess. Okay, so there's our thread, nice and taut. There, now you can see it. Okay. Now, I'm going to add my little winged keys, and I think the way I was doing that was like this and like that. And these are 3 different sizes. This one is almost 1.5 inches tall. It's about 1/16 of an inch shorter than that. And it is about 1.5 inches wide. So that would be the widest. You could probably make it a little bit wider. There's plenty of room on each side. So if you're not using a winged key, you could use other elements that you might want to use, ephemera or other die cuts. The bottom one is almost 1 1/8 inches tall by 1 1/4 inches wide, and then the top one will be about 1 inch by 1 inch. Okay, so that gives you a nice idea if you did want to do something different. Like, I plan to use this mini album to make other designs besides this Back to Hogwarts theme. I think this would be a great baby album, which I'm already thinking about doing. If you all would be interested in seeing that, let me know. I do have a niece that had a little baby boy, and I have not made her anything yet, and I want to do that. So we could actually turn this into a baby album as well. So let me know in the comments below on that. So I'm going to start with the back piece first. I'm going to just flip it over. What I did do was use some Distress Oxide Vintage Photo, and I inked all the backs so that when we do layer them, it would go with the front. Just a slight variation there, but again, that gives you depth and motion. So I'm going to use the back. I'm going to just kind of figure out how I want it to look. I think I kind of want it like that. You know, and I don't even know if that's the center. I'm just putting it where I think it should be. I think I'll do that with all three. You do want to make sure that there is space between the image that you add and the sides of the shape that you use here in the center. You could have made this a long rectangle if you wanted to instead of an oval. You know, there's lots of ways to do this. Okay, I like that. I'm going to use some of that, what is that, low-tack tape, now that I got those where I want them, and I'm going to tape down my pattern paper to my desk. Okay. And y'all, I'm winging this, so there might be better ways to do this. But I'm going to go ahead and add my wet adhesive here. Just have to clean up my desk later. And I'm going to put my other piece on top. I want to match up the key, or the key teeth, and the top. And then I'm going to let the wings land where they will. So you can see it right away that those don't line up, but it's okay. I like it. It shows movement and depth, and that's what I was going for. Okay. I think I'll do, might be easier to put your adhesive on the one you're putting down. Matching up my top part first, and then the bottom. Oh yeah, I love that spread right there. And the wings, oh, that looks neat. Love it, love it, love it. And then, let's see. You know, and like I said, you could spread the wings out a little bit if you wanted, but keep these two pieces here aligned together. Okay. We'll clean that up later, but there's our images. So if we went to the back, there they are. Let's fold this up. that. Now I believe people twist these around so that when they do get opened, they spin. Oh, that's fun. What's nice about this one's a little heavier, so it does automatically give you motion, where the other two kind of stay where they are when it opens. So you would have to turn all three to get all three of them to move, which that's kind of hard. All right, let's do it again and let's open it. Yeah. Okay, enough fooling around. We're going to adhere this piece in first. I think it'd be easier to do that because what we need to do is line up the crease on this piece with the score line or fold on this piece. The measurements that I gave you will leave an 1/8 of an inch border around it. Of course, there'll be more here because of this space being larger. It'll probably be best to glue down one side and then glue down the other side to make sure that you're getting it right into the crease. You want to make sure that this flap is folded down before you secure this one. Because when you fold, it also pushes papers out. Okay, because of the crease that it has there. Hope that makes sense. So let's put this down. I'm going to fold this over. Yeah. Looking good. I got it like right next to the score line there. Can you see how close I am? I think I need to make this one a little bit closer up at the top. Now let's fold this over onto the other side and burnish. And fold over. Now it's going to feel a little thick right here where we folded because we have that paper in there now. Okay. Oh no. Burnish that really good. Mine got a little wrinkle in it, which I'm not happy about because it's right in the center. But I guess your eyes don't really go there. So at this point, you can decide whether or not you want to glue this piece onto this one, matching the two sides and matching the two sides over here. When you do that and it lays completely flat, this gets closer together, as you can see, and so these don't really have movement. I mean, you can juggle them around like this, but there's not much movement. If you wanted movement, which I'm thinking about doing, is you could take this piece and adhere it about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of this piece here, our parchment piece, on each side like that. So then even when it's open, you have this fun little movement. So if you have kids, they're gonna want this. I'm telling you now, this is so fun. So, you may want to decide to just move it in a little bit. And I really think that's what I'm gonna do because it's funner than when it lays flat like this. So that's how I'm gonna do mine. Those are your two options. You can pick which one you want to do. But when we glue it down, we're only gluing this side here to the base, and then this side here to the base. We do not add adhesive to the center part, okay? So I think what I'll do is put my ruler up here so I can, you know, measure out 1/4 of an inch and go from there. So I'm adding adhesive up to the score line, but don't go over. Now I put ink on the edges of my pattern paper. And of course, since I used Vintage Photo, when I added adhesive, it reactivated the ink. And so it started to smear that. So I had to put it wherever I laid it, whether it was right or not. All right, I'm going to add my adhesive to this side. Now you don't have to measure like I'm doing. You guys know how I like to be as exact as I can. I'm just gonna go ahead and burnish this side down real good. And then when you open it, oh my gosh, loving it. Now, hold on one moment. Now when I did the printable, I of course made multiple on a sheet for you. So I use my Cricut and Cricut Design Space to cut these images out. And it worked perfectly fine the way it was when it entered in there. So if you're using your Cricut or Silhouette and you upload these SVG files, you can size them to whatever size you want. And just, I would say, cut a bunch of them. And then you can, you know, decorate your page. Just do all kinds of fun things with it. You could even take one and make it a broken wing, like, you know, here, there. Now you have one with the broken wing. We could have done that in here, I guess. I don't want to mess it up. But anyways, that's an example of what you can do then with the keys. Now, there's probably more here than you will get in the printable. I don't know. I haven't actually finished the printable yet. But I did want to show you that you'll get multiple versions of this. That you'll get, you know, various sizes of these in the printable for those that are cutting by hand. Okay, so that's that side. So fun. Should we do it with these all twisted? I don't know if you'll be able to see. I don't actually know how they do that in the cards. I've never made one before. Because it does all the spinning here, so you kind of miss it. It's still fun. The kids are going to love it. Now we're going to work on the outside panels. And oh my gosh, you guys. So I went through all my Country Craft Creations paper that I have, just looking for other patterns that I could include in this album. I had a lot of fun mixing different collections in this album. And I was in Fall Breeze, which is one of my absolute favorites from Country Craft Creations. And they have a sweater pattern. And you know I snatched that up because Ron Weasley right here in this pattern. I'm telling you, I loved it. This is a must-have. I love this one. So you want these two pieces to measure 3 3/4 by 7 3/4. The next thing I did was I took this pattern paper from the Adventures in Magic and I cut 2 strips. These are 1/8 of an inch wide by 7 3/4 inches tall. And there's a reason I did that, and it's to mirror a little bit of what's going on the page that's going to be next to this page. And you'll see that when we put it actually in the album. So 2 of these, 1/8 by 7 3/4. 2 of these, 3 3/4 by 7 3/4. And again, this is Fall Breeze paper collection. All I'm going to do here is just glue these on top with the 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. And then I'm going to take these little strips and glue them on, one on each side. Oh, and I see I didn't cut it so that I could be more exact in cutting. I'm going to put one on here and then one over here. And that's all the decorating I'm going to do on this page, because as you recall, we will have our banner waterfall slider in the middle. For the banner waterfall, I did cut another piece of this gray metallic cardstock to be 3 by 4, and that is going to go here on the very last piece. I didn't want to leave it black. I don't know why I didn't. So you can leave this blank for your photo, or you can add this. And then you're going to need one piece of pattern paper. This measures 3 by 7. And I'm putting that, I'm going to show you all these pieces so I can just glue everything down. And I'm putting this underneath the band from our waterfall, if you recall. See, this was stopping. So when we add this, no stopping. And it gives a nice little decorative element down here at the bottom. So when you're all done, it will look like this. Okay? Those are all the pieces. All I'm going to do now is glue everything down. Okay, now what we're going to do, now that we have everything together, the only thing we're missing is a pull down item, which we'll figure that out in a moment. We're going to take and open our band and slip that over our page. And that's how it will look. Now again, when you are sliding from one side to the other, if you think it's getting a little stuck or something, just pull up on the waterfall. You want to hold down your page and pull up and over, and it moves super smoothly. I love it. So here's our album. So as you can see, the reason I added the strips here and here was so that it would mimic these strips in this journal card. And I love that it pulls it all together. Another way that I pulled these two together was that I used this paper, which is the background for this pattern paper. And you know, this being all gamish, having the banners, you know, little flags for each of the houses actually mimics something that you would see at a game. So these two really came together very well. It took me some time to figure out how to get these two pages to complement one another. So there, I did the hard work for you. But anyways, I'm loving how this turned out. So now what we want to do is we want to attach this piece to our base page. Now to do that, we're going to add adhesive to our hinges only. Hinges only. Everything else shouldn't be touched. I'm going to do one side at a time. Start with the right inside, because if anything hangs over on the left-hand side, it's okay because we have a pocket there anyways. Okay, I've got my adhesive on there. I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to line up the edge here with the score line right here at the top. I can't really see. I'm going right to the top edge of that score line at the top of our 1/4 of an inch gusset that we added to expand our page. See? Right here. So I hope that you can see. Here's the top of that 1/4 of an inch. There's my score line, and I'm putting this right on top of that. Okay, all the way down. Let's fold this over, make sure our page is still good to go, and burnish that really well. You know what, I'm gonna slide this and open and burnish on the inside too. I want to make sure that there's contact with that whole hinge onto the base page. Okay, I have this on here pretty good. I had to kind of smush it together because it's so thick right here. And then I tried to do some burnishing underneath and in between my little images. You'll notice there is about a 1/16 of an inch lip here where the edge of the piece we just added doesn't go to the edge of the base page. That's okay. You want that because when you open your page, it will lay flat and go right in to that space. So it just gives you some extra space to open your page and for it to lay flat. Okay? So it's all good. You want that. Okay, for our pull down piece, what I decided to do was to use the ephemera piece that is the firebolt, or resembling the firebolt, the broom. I've added foam adhesive here on half of it because I'm going to add it here. And then this part that's open will go over top our little band piece, okay? So I'm just gonna center that. And then you just pull that down and it opens. Awesome. I like how that turned out. So cute. So we have that. Push it to the left, open. We have a pocket here, here. Plenty of room for photos. You can slide this over. And then we have our fun little element here. You can add photos here to the sides, which is what I really wanted. And then push that back over, close this up. Super fun and interactive. I love it. So that was everything for page 3, our fun backside and the front. Oh my gosh, this page alone had so many different elements to it. I hope you enjoy the outcome though, because it's so worth it. Coming up next is page 4. We'll be making the stained glass page and then our double reverse waterfall. Now this is way easier than it looks and it's really fun. So that's what's coming up next. We just finished page 3 and I will have all of the links to everything that you need to continue to make this mini album with me, and I thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.